I decided not to teach for 2 years because I thought it was important to be able to teach what you knew and to be able to kind of share your experience. I wanted to understand, where I got stuck. And given I'm in, mid to late 60s now, it was important that I got as far down the path as possible, in this lifetime. And the research I did, I'd had some, good jobs in Australian life, and I'm a Sloan Fellow of the London Business School. I decided to apply sort of an investigative manner to it, that I didn't have any parameters about where I would look for teachings, but I would weigh it against the suttas and try and find those teachers in the world that had right view. One of the things that drove me around right view was I felt that there were less arahants or people with right view in the world now than there were in the Buddha's time. So part of the investigation for me said, well, what's the difference? Why would that be the case? And I looked at things like, books didn't come along for the suttas until 500 years after the Buddha taught. So when the Buddha taught, was he doing something? Was he using different forms of communication? Given we rely a lot on the written word, but they didn't have it. A lot of those transmissions were oral. So the first year, I think I hit a few roadblocks. And then I was lucky to find that there's a new methodology in the world, which will get some currency shortly, which is phenomenology. And phenomenology is the study of phenomena. And phenomena kind of unpacks the Buddha's teachings, because when you teach yourself how to study phenomena, you realize that the Buddha was describing experiences in the suttas. They're not explanations. And the reason why a lot of people in the present day might miss it, a scientist or a scholar, is that the scientist and a scholar tends to stand over the subject matter and hasn't accounted for their experience, their phenomena in doing the experiment. What mood they're in today, what's the intention of the experiment, what are they trying to learn from it, yeah? So phenomena takes you a little while to understand, because you mustn't leave yourself out of the experience that you're having. And when you put yourself into the experience, then the suttas and the practice becomes very impactful. Let me see if I can sort of try and explain it to you. You see a physical form in front of you, which most people have labeled Mettaji. But what I really needed to concentrate on for a year was the 5 khandhas. The 5 khandhas is what the Buddha says is the aspect that can get you as quick as possible to not self. But you need to have broken each of those 5 khandhas down sufficient that you can see that none of them could ever be yours. They never could in this life, they won't be in the next, and they won't have been that case in the past. But again, why would a scientist and a scholar miss this? Well, for Mettaji to be talking to you tonight, I have to be in this container of a body which is here through the whole aspect of this life. And the Buddha pointed back to the body as being the container for all of the experiences, what we refer to as the world. And the only thing that you're meant to study, even though there are volumes and volumes of suttas, is the answers to all of your questions are in this fathom-long body, carcass, when they're being a bit stronger on the points. And the concentration, the bringing together of those 5 khandhas, each of which is independent. They're separate domains that don't overlap each other. If you see one or two can't possibly be yours, that leads you on a goal to say, what's the basis of the Buddha's teachings, and are people going to listen to that in the present day? One of the things that gets in our way as practitioners is that sense desire is far more prevalent in the present age than it was in the Buddha's time. And I don't know whether some of you have seen my favorite cartoon. It's by Lunig. Lunig's character is looking down on an iPhone, but the iPhone is talking to the individual, and the iPhone says, "You think I'm your device, you're my device." So we are enchanted with sensuality, and we think it's going to give us pleasure in the world, which is just not possible when you understand how the body-mind-speech structure works. And one thing that really hit me about a year ago now was I saw this quote from a sutta that said, and it was well translated by some monks in Slovenia, all existence is there by attention. Everything that we sort of take in the world to be is achieved by attention. That's at yoniso manasikara. The Buddha says two things that you need to get to right view, and that's why I wish for everybody on this call and everybody who watches it later and anybody that I come into contact with, the two aspects that you could get right view in this lifetime, and then you're on the path out, is the utterance of another who understands and explains to you the second piece, which is yoniso manasikara. Yoniso manasikara is the obverse of ayoniso manasikara, and when properly translated, and sadly some of the best teachers in the world have probably not got it right, that's not being rude, I'm just trying to help everybody. Yoni, a lot of ladies would understand what that was. Yoni is the womb, and what you're supposed to concentrate on, I don't like the word concentrate, sorry. Yoniso manasikara is attending from the womb. Attending from the womb is in the opposite direction to what you attend. Given the Buddha was trying to point at the fact that the six senses, this sixth sense animal, goes out into the world for pleasure, goes and have arguments based on anger, goes and disturbs itself with little, I'll see the soccer results, I'll check the cooking news, whatever. Yoniso manasikara attached to Paticca Samuppada, dependent origination, says, with this is. It's the principle of simultaneity. You can't have a human experience with both things being there at the same time. And you have to be able to understand that and work it into your sort of daily life, which is a lot harder for a lay practitioner. But work it into your daily life and said, for all of that to be out there, there has to be something back here. What's back here? Well, a lot of times it's the container for a body. I can't have any experience in the world if my six senses are active. And sensuality isn't in the sense objects. Sensuality isn't in my senses. Sensuality starts in the mind. And when you calm down sufficiently enough, you realize that sensuality, just the thought of sensuality, is very hot and very negative. We don't see that if we've been coming around time after time, because every time we had an unpleasant feeling, we went out to get something in the world, whether it was a cup of tea, a hug from the missus, pick up a novel. The Buddha said, the mind is so quick, so fleeting, so hard to catch and spot, you're already out into the sense world without realizing where it came from. So you wouldn't learn Yonisamanasikara overnight. But when we get to the four Satipatthanas, which I'll kind of use as the basis for the meditation, the four Satipatthanas are trying to show you that they're the four things that you should have in mind all day long. And when you realize you've forgotten Yonisamanasikara, you go back to the four Satipatthanas to anchor you in this experience, which is impermanent and cycling at all sorts of different rates. The mind is a lot faster. People would say, well, this is my body. I look after my body. It's my body. When you realize that with Yonisamanasikara, you're supposed to appreciate that the only body that you have, the only body that you can perceive is a body within a body. So the internal body and the mind collaborates to kind of say, I'm going to push you out the world. I want you to do something. And I'll just finish up on the investigation. It was a bit of a light bulb moment when somebody clearly explained that the teaching of meditation in the present era and the understanding of mindfulness of breathing is probably related to meditating with sensuality. The Buddha didn't say, follow your breath. The Buddha said, be mindful that you're breathing. With this is. You can't breathe without the body. You may have an intention to think that you're causing the breathing, but the truth of the matter, why he keeps pointing back to Yoniso, is you have to really disengage from the world to see what this is about. And the present that he wants to offer, and this is a good time of year to be giving you presents, right, is the present is, if you don't see this, you could come back aeon after aeon, driven by a karma that points you to being an animal next time based on what you've done in this lifetime. But the principles are there. They're always there, but we cover them over. We cover them over with sensuality. We cover them over with hindrances. We cover them over with restlessness. So I just want to read you a little bit from a book. And I'm sorry if some of this is a bit difficult or confronting, but all I thought I could do was share an experience like, I think this is the journey that people need to go on in the present lifetime. And obviously I wish that you get the fruits of the path. And I've still got some work to do. I'm not going to make any claims. But let me read you, a really good work where these are the present day dictionary definitions of the word meditate. Focus one's mind for a period of time in silence or with the aid of chanting for religious or spiritual purposes or as a method of relaxation. Second, to engage in mental exercise, sometimes as concentrations on one breathing or repetition of a mantra for the purposes of reaching a heightened level of spiritual awareness. Third, to train, calm or empty the mind, often by achieving an altered state as by focusing on a single object, especially as a form of religious practice in Buddhism or Hinduism. Now, these other monks, these friends in other countries, they went all the way back to 160 CE, Marcus Aurelius. They looked at the Greeks, they looked at the Germans. Sorry, not the Germans. They looked at those ancient lives and what they were studying. And they found that meditation was to engage in contemplation or reflection. To think or reflect, especially in a calm and deliberate manner. To think deeply about something. So meditation as a word has a different history, and that history lines up closer to the suttas, because each of those suttas is a meditation, often from the Buddha or from somebody who's got right view. You can normally rely on that there's one character in that sutta that has right view, and a meditation is to reflect on one subject matter really, really deeply, sufficient that you can see greed, hatred, and delusion. That you can see the six senses can't possibly be yours. We take them up. We take them to be ours. To show you what the elements of a path is. Why does a path for monastics start with right view and renunciation? Renunciation comes before compassion and non-violence. But it's pointing to the fact you need to renounce everything, not my nice house I used to have in Sydney, 20 years ago, or the cars. I'm supposed to renounce my body and my mind eventually. And when the Buddha explained that in his day, a lot of people threw themselves on the ground, slamming the ground, said, this is going to kill me. This will end my existence. And he'd go, yes, that's the point. The point is, lifetime after lifetime, if you believe in that, then we take up the sixth sense animal, and the reason that the mind keeps coming back lifetime after lifetime is until you tame it and teach it calmly and gently, it believes there's pleasure in the world. It wants to come back. Hence the expression, everything is driven by craving. And the craving leads to suffering. It's not just the suffering in this lifetime. If there are good monks, trustworthy monks, who can say clearly that they've seen previous lives and they know who they were and what clan they were in, the Buddha's talking about the suffering in this lifetime, but what I'm disappointed in the modern era is we don't talk enough about Tivija. Tivija are the three pieces of wisdom that the Buddha got on the night of enlightenment. The first piece he got after teaching himself, probably not for a few weeks, over a few years, he tried all sorts of this aesthetic practices. But the first wisdom he got in the first watch of the night is he could see not 1, not 10, not 20, not 30, thousands of previous lives. And he knew whether he was an animal in that lifetime. It was clear as day, okay? So having had that, he turns his mind to, why did I get reborn? I was a monk in some of those lives. How come I got reborn? And we know in the narrative that he'd already had some very senior teachers who knew what jhanas were, but they hadn't sort of broke through to this level that he's now, describing. So the second watch of the night is he realizes that it's karma that drives people from life to lifetime. And it's based on what your mind got up to. So if you killed a lot of people, or specifically your mother, your father, a monk or whatever, you could really go into some poor destinations, after you passed from that lifetime. But also, there seemed to be other levels. There were higher levels than the human condition, what's referred to as devas and the like. So he could see something happening, but he didn't understand perfectly. And in other sutras it says, if you want to go and study karma and say, is this good karma, bad karma? He said it is so complex that you'll either go crazy or you'll look for a way out. You'll look for a way out. And fortunately for us, if we're practicing Buddhists, fortunately for us, he asks himself, have I got any control over this karma? And if I do, what am I supposed to do? That it's endless. And whatever I do in each lifetime is potentially meaningless until I find the way out. And the third of the watch of the night is what gives you the Eightfold Path. So it's there. It's not talked about as much. People don't go and sort of look at it. But all I was trying to do, you see, over these 2 years is saying, what is it I'm missing? And what I felt I was missing was, I'd done a lot of work for BSWA. I'd helped across Australia, dealing with government and stuff based on my previous experience. But I didn't have enough seclusion and an interrogatory type mind that be calm enough to say, is this valuable, or have I gone and picked up a comic? Yeah? So, fortunately for us, a new range of monks coming through will be able to teach how everything is a phenomena. So once you understand that I'm a phenomena in front of you now, well, no, you're not. I mean, you look like a normal human being. The phenomena of Mettaji presently wasn't here at 5 to 7. He's now risen into your consciousness, and about 8:30 he'll go away again. Everything arises in ceasing, whether it's body, so, we know old age, sickness and death catches up with us. But we don't see necessarily that it applies to everything. Even my words. I've had thoughts in my mind which break into speech for me to try and communicate this to you. But those two processes are separate. They're in separate domains. The Buddha separated them out. Mind, body, speech. Each three are separate, but you have to spend some time saying, okay, a second, what's the implication of that? What does that mean for the way I've got 2 children, interact with my kids, talk about Ajahn Brahm, fight the ATO for BSWA? What it points back at is, if you really understand impermanence, not self, and dukkha, any action I take in this present life is like picking up a hot coal. And the simile that I would give you is, why does relations sometimes not go well? Why, if I come with a meaning heart, I offer metta to this other person, why is my gesture of body, speech, or mind, it seems to have hit this brick wall? The answer I'm presently working on is, my 5 khandhas, I have enough trouble looking after them and trying to understand they're not self. If they're not self, the other person's khandhas are also not self. And when we have an interaction, I have no idea what that person's feelings are, what their mind state is. I can guess, we can have an interaction. But you see, the Buddha was pointing back to, the only work you can do is on yourself. You've got to pick your friends wisely. You've got to pick your teachers wisely. All you can influence is the 5 khandhas, because if you take another body, you're going to be in the same 5 khandhas, but they've gone forward into a new form. It's almost like being buried alive and then saying, yeah, but I want to reach out and get something. But the sense objects aren't ours. You can get a feeling of that. But all of the work that the Buddha is asking you to do is in Yonasamanasikara, which is in the opposite direction to how we operate in the present world. And why would that be important? So everybody knows that the first verse in the Dhammapada is, mind is the forerunner of all things. So if you don't understand how your mind is and how it operates, and you go out seeking unwholesome things, sensuality, good argument, going to tell that person off, You don't realize that you could stop the pollution at the mind level. When you've gone in engaged in the world, it's going to be like playing whack-a-mole. When you say, oh, I get this Buddhist thing now, I mustn't have that ice cream, that sensuality, I mustn't do this. The application of the full teaching then says, my actions in the world, karma, I think they've been generated by me, but paticca samuppada, the completion of the teaching, is to say, I have stopped karma. Karma can be stopped in the present time, in the present era, in this present moment, like while we're talking together. Why would that be the case? I'm just going to put the book down so I can just give you another visual demonstration. So if you go and test, afterwards, because you might think I've been smoking funny cigarettes, but if you go and test this afterwards, the Buddha says, your experience, the Dhamma, is visible in the present moment, and it's timeless. And people have done their own translations on that. But timeless and the experience have the same principles of, with this is. You can't have an experience without vijnana and consciousness touching each other. If one falls over, it's gone, right? But with this is, then, this is the last bit I'll do before we try meditation. If you can see that every experience you have is a phenomena, making sense of Dhamma, Dhamma is meant to indicate phenomena. It's not explanations. It's saying you're part of the experience. You don't get to see that you're part of the experience. I'm trying to show you that those 5 khandhas aren't yours. So you can pick up a sutra and say, okay, if that experience applies to me, why do I hurt myself first when I'm angry before I get angry with someone else? Why does the Buddha say, if I pick up somebody else's anger or I start the anger, I've just picked up a red hot iron ball and I hurt myself first. I burn myself first before I go and throw it at somebody else. And the burning may last for 20 years. I'm not forgiven. They'll never speak to me again. Yeah? But when 2 people are angry together, the Buddha says, well, I'm going to make up my own simile here. That's a bit like sitting down and having a bonfire together, but you're both on fire. And it would take one or the other of you to say, oh, come on, this was only over, a cheesecake that was in the Dharmasala today. If I'd known that you'd wanted it, I would have given it to you. I didn't really have the need for it. But you see, ayonisa manasikara, you're already out there. I'm going to tell him off, or, he cutting me on the lights, or he's got the library book that I was going to take 5 minutes ago. I'm just going to slam the counter and say, don't leave the premises, that was mine. I had my eye on it first. And then it shows you how ridiculous we can be in the human condition, yeah? So, the Buddha, stopping this first part of the talk, and I'll try and turn it into a meditation, the Buddha is showing the plight of existence anyway. And you can get distracted, and the thing I needed to learn is, I looked at thousands of talks, I'd read loads and loads of suttas. Stephen was my lay name, and I worked hard in Sydney. I ran groups on meditation. The simple but important piece I left out was I have to be part of the experience that I'm having, and it doesn't take you long to discover this body couldn't possibly be mine. It was given to me. I kind of borrowed it from my mother and father, and I've created to, whippersnappers in the world, as it were, they may take it to be their bodies now and charging around the world, whatever they would want to do. But if this body was mine, I might have said, I don't want you to age. I'd like you to be a bit smaller, a handsome monk like Ajahn Brahm. But none of those things were ever possible, and they never will be. Yeah? So if you'll humour me, what I'd sort of like to do, there'll be periods of silence. What I've just taught for half an hour, I want to take you on a different type of meditation, which is the second type of meditation, is that in the half an hour, there'll be lots of gaps, but I'll try and share with you something that you can reflect on any time of the day. You don't have to be sitting on a cushion to do it, but as a further manifestation, present, offering to you at this festive time of year, and say, challenge me with questions and answers afterwards. And I'd welcome that. Is that okay with people? We'll do the meditation now. Thumbs up. Okay. So I'll remember to mute myself, and my eyes from time to time might be open, but that's just to make sure I watch the clock. Okay. Now, you can choose to meditate with your eyes open or closed, so I give you that choice. Yes, you do need to be calm and peaceful, so hopefully I haven't disturbed too many people in the first half an hour. So let's say you choose to close your eyes, and we'll go for about 30 minutes. So let me, in my way, try and explain the Satipatthanas to you. And then when I've explained one Satipatthana, I'll then leave a gap for 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes that you can look for what I'm suggesting in the meditation. So the Buddha said, in the Satipatthanas, you're supposed to see the body within the body. So your first exercise, just using the mind, try not to think it. See if you can see your internal body, what you sense to be your internal body. What we take as the external body is all of the senses. But for the next 5 or 6 minutes, calmly, gently, see if you can sense the internal physicality of your body. Now for the second Satipatthana. So feelings feel, perceptions perceive. They're two separate domains that don't overlap. So the second Satipatthana related to feelings, see if you can sense what feeling you are in your body. Sense what feeling you are in and whether that changes or whether it stays constant during this period. Third Satipatthana, mind within the mind. So the Buddha said you can't see the mind directly. That's really important. So the best way to think of it in this meditation, this contemplation that you're having internally, is what is your present mood? Is it elated, depressed, excited? Just spend 5 minutes, and as you search, look for that mood in your mind, is it enduring there already, or did you create it? In the fourth Satipatthana, which if you allow me, I'm going to translate Dhamma as phenomena. So looking at the phenomena within phenomena. So again, applying the concept of Yonisamanasikara, see if you can detach but watch your thoughts for the next 5 minutes and see if you notice whether they come up on their own or that you're in control of them. Don't overthink it, just allow the thoughts to be there. I'm bringing this meditation towards a close, but just give yourself 60 seconds to reflect that if you've got these 4 anchors that you can call on any time during a 24-hour period, would it anchor your experience before you intended anything? That you can check your intention in your mind state, in your feelings, in the intentions of your body before you act. And then in 60 seconds I'll bring everybody back into the room. So do take a deep breath, open your eyes, and come back and join the community. I'm not sure how you do questions and answers, but I'm open to that, so far away, and I'll try and look at everybody when they speak. Geetha, were you going to say something?
I just noticed Suzanne has her hand up.
I beg your pardon.
Just go ahead, Suzanne.
Okay, thank you. Venerable Mettaji, I like your name. First of all, it's a nice name, Mettaji. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yes, you got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good. Yeah, that was a really good meditation for me. Going through these realms of experience, and I just felt like sharing some of that experience. Is that okay?
Please do.
Okay. Feeling the body in the body. I noticed just staying in that experience of the body. It kind of the experience of just in the end being energy, like an energy, a light maybe, but more so energy, feeling of energy. That's what it really comes down to. I've experienced that not the first time, I would say. And then the second one was the feeling 13. And that was, I really noticed that is not part of the body, of matter, but that's part of the mind. And in my experience, it was really a different realm, and kind of separate from it, in a way. Like two different, sometimes, I don't know, some people say that's one, but it didn't feel like that. It's not one, it's like this is the matter and this is the mind. And so that in the end was very blissful and light, full of light. I'm in a really good mood today, so it was easy.
That's good.
No grief or sadness or something that would have come up if there would have been that, but no, it wasn't. And then the thoughts I found really interesting, because I could sometimes thoughts are not thoughts anymore for me, but it's movement, like movement. It's not even like pictures or words, but I feel that there's something moving, and I could really like notice how there was, like, for example, I was thinking, I would like to share, like, after the meditation, and so there was like an intention, and then suddenly thoughts came, and how am I going to do that? And you were asking about if this is like I'm thinking, like I'm creating these thoughts, or are they coming? And I really could experience that they're coming based on like what I've experienced before, what would work, how to use my words, and it seemed like it was like thoughts are there to kind of influence this world, matter, like the body, or to create something in there that I would maybe like, or to have some kind of influence on this world. That's why these thoughts are created. And once that I realized that, and I could feel like, okay, behind that so what is behind that? Maybe a sense of craving, wanting. And if that would have gone further, I think I would have probably been able to let go even more, and the meditation wasn't long enough, but it started to become very peaceful in a way. So I think I couldn't really find something in there that I would say that's me.
Thank you.
Except maybe the craving, but yeah, but if that disappears, that's not me either, maybe, I don't know.
Can I hear some other shares or some other questions before I comment? Alex, please.
So I a little bit struggle with the idea of duality between perception and sensation, and the duality between the body and the mind, because I really see it as there is no mind. Like, mind is something that we've dreamed up, we've conceived of. There's a brain, there's a physical grey matter, which has electrical impulses moving around, but those are physical things. And so I also struggle with that idea of perception versus sensation, because I feel like our perceptions are informed by our sensations, and so those arguments and analyses were moving through my mind, and I was trying to make sense of how I could separate these realms out. And so I found that sometimes the instructions you were giving for the next meditation were already things I was doing in the current one. I found it I found it impossible to identify my inner body, because every time I would think I had identified it, it was always a sensation. So if I thought, I feel a bit of like soreness in my like tummy area, then I'm like, well, that's not experiencing my inner intestine, because that's still sensation, right? So I don't know if that was the purpose for me to realize that I couldn't identify the inner body, but it was like an interesting analytical meditation for me, and thank you very much.
Okay, yeah, I assumed it might be new to people, and I could only try and offer something that I'd found really helpful, and I thought it linked up with the suttas and a lot of things. But let's just pick one of those as an example. How do we know that we've got a mind? I've seen a great talk on this. So two monks talking to each other, And one monk turns to the other and said, describe the mind to me. So the other monk says, well, it's kind of this faculty that allows me to, decide, make decisions. I can't put my finger on it, but there seems to be something there. And he said, so how do you know it's a mind then, based on what you just said? And it goes on for a few minutes, but the lowest level that you can get, you can't directly see the mind, is you notice that a thought comes up. That's the lowest level that you can get to. And it's not about electrons and stuff. It's the fact that the thought comes up on its own. This is why the Buddha said it's so hard to see. People think they can see the mind directly. You can only see it indirectly because you're within the experience. And when a thought comes up, it does two things. It designates and it resists at the same time. It designates what it's got attention on. So there's Mettaji. He's just speaking. The thought indicates there's something there called Mettaji. But the resistance is the senses saying, I have to see whether Mettaji is fend or foe, and it's part of my experience, and I need to sort of work with that. So because the thoughts come up fairly quickly, very, very quickly, you don't realize that it's designated and resisting your matter the moment it happens. And lifetime after lifetime, we've taken those thoughts to be ours. So open question, what are thoughts composed of? Why do we have thoughts in the first place? You can't go without thoughts. You can try, you can believe that, you've turned the thoughts off. But as soon as you step off the meditation mat and go outside, you need thoughts to engage with the world, make decisions. So what is the bulk of the thoughts that we have? And why are most of them not helpful to us? Do you remember the expression in the suttas, the mind will incline to what it's used to? So do you notice if you had a habit or preference? So let me tell some jokes against myself. So I used to really like soccer and this player called Lionel Messi. If Lionel Messi appeared out of the corner of my eye in a newspaper, I would want to see what Lionel Messi was up to. It became a hook. The thought was a hook that this player had exceptional skills, and I thought he was giving me pleasure. The time his teams won and the like, yeah? So what our present mind is constructed of, and it lines quite nicely with the karma, you've built up a set of habits and preferences which you take to be your mind, and you're out pursuing that sensuality to take away a difficult feeling or an unpleasant feeling before you've noticed you've done it. Does that make sense? So when you look at meditation like this and saying, okay, if the Buddha meant meditation was a drill down, you don't do what I just did. You could take one issue for a meditation of an hour and say, I want to understand anger. I want to understand anger. What's the basis of anger? Well, anger's, in almost all circumstances, an unpleasant feeling. Okay, it's an unpleasant feeling. What else is it in there? What's underneath the unpleasant feeling? Well, it's unwanted. Almost every time I have anger, it's worked fairly quickly. I used to joke with an old partner that her anger went off faster than a Porsche. Apologies if she's watching. But because it does move that quickly, you don't notice that with this there has to be something else underneath it that you're trying to get away from. So the craving for sense pleasure and the craving to get away from aversion. So what's underneath the unpleasant feeling? I don't want it. I want it to go away as soon as possible. Do I get angry in all circumstances when there's an unpleasant feeling? Or no, sometimes I'm in a good mood. And this person who insulted me yesterday, I can have a joke with today because my mood is different. So the same circumstance might have happened, but I don't notice if my mood is different, I may not pick up the anger. So what's the resolution to anger? Well, if you knew not to pick it up in the first place and you could endure the negative feeling, what you take to be emotionally uncomfortable, it won't endure for a long period of time. It's a phenomena. The emotional feeling that you perceive afterwards, because it's only a feeling, the feeling came up at the same time or before, and you didn't notice it was there. You jumped out onto the circumstances and said, they've done it again, they've been really rude and angry to me, I need to defend myself. Yeah? So you take one contemplation, you drill down and say, hate cannot be replaced by love. Hate can only be replaced by non-hate. And if you have an angry disposition, you have to practice non-hate in all circumstances for a while until anger dissipates. I can't give you a box of anger, can I? I can't give you a materiality of anger. It's a phenomena in this fathom-long body that we don't realize how it's come up, how to make it go away, and if it turned up many times in the future of my life that I'm kind of ready for it and saying, I don't have to do that. Just watching the clock. A few more questions. We're at 8:22. Is it making sense? I mean, if you find it too confronting, sort of push me fairly hard, but I was ready to offer it, you know, as a present, because I think in the present era, you can only do the work yourself, yeah? And you have to make sure that the teachings are accurate, that you can have Dhamma discussions with people you trust, that you can share amongst each other, like this beautiful group meets once a week. But if one of you had an issue, I'd recommend you pick it up the phone to each other and said, we're just going to discuss Dharma. Where might you be stuck? Where am I stuck? See if you can help each other, but use it on the basis of the 5 khandhas or the 4 satipatthanas, or are these senses really mine? Prove to me that, you know, these senses are mine. You don't have to go far out of the box in the initial years, because if I ever get to, you know, run a vihara or a monastery, and I might be too old, I'm certainly looking to set up a new community somewhere in Australia. I think, you know, the abbots and the elders should work really hard on the novice monks to make sure they've got right view, because then the monastic, male or female, their renunciation has been the best investment they could make. And if they understand what right view is, they can pass it on and turn around, you know, the dreadful numbers we have in the present era of not that many monastics with right view. And just to finish that point, right view then deals with what is known as the vipalasas. The problem is we got everything the wrong way up. So we believe there's a self and then the body. But what you take to be the self, the body would have to be there first. That's why the satipatthanas start with the body. You can't be anywhere else than this body. You're in a container of the body, and surprise, surprise, the feelings are inside. The mind states are inside. Most of the dharmas are inside. Yeah, you think the dharmas are out there, but your intention to go and hug a tree, buy a cake, go and get a lovely Christmas present for Granny, that all has to start in the mind, and the intention can be wholesome or unwholesome. You don't realize that's where it's all coming from. And the mind, the chitta, there's two definitions of mind. Mano is your intellect. Chitta is perceptions and feelings together. You can't separate them. You have to do hard work to get close and say, okay, where is chitta? Chitta is a wild animal that is watching you, mano, operate in the world. So you make actions in the world, but chitta gets agitated based on what you do. If you get angry with someone, chitta might bark at you internally, suffering, on the basis of, I'm scared what you just did to your boyfriend. So you have to go a long way back in Yonasa Manasakara to see the signs of the mind indirectly, to then see where the work is in this lifetime. Going out in the world for sense pleasures, that's why it's number one. If you can see the danger in sensuality, you put that down, that's 80% of the work done. But a lot of practitioners will go, I'll have my meditations and then I'll get back to Netflix. There's a great series on right now. Or I need a bit of comedy after Mettaji. I mean, God, he's finished me off for that type of stuff. But you can't have both. You can't have both because your habits and preferences, you haven't given up. The sensuality in any life will never give you what you want. And that's probably the biggest delusion of all. Sorry if I'm saying too much. We're at 8:27. One last question and then we'll do the Metta Sutta. Or if you want to stop there. You can always send me questions in the box underneath when they publish this or whatever. Is that enough for now? We'll do the Metta Sutta. Now, why did I save the Metta Sutta for last? Because the Metta Sutta is a teaching by the Buddha to those who have right view. The Metta Sutta is meant to describe how a bhikkhu with right view is meant to behave. If you think the Metta Sutta can cause you to act as a layperson, you don't realize that these are all the workings of the mind. And they came to the Buddha and said they were fearful. They had gone and camped in a forest. And the devas who weren't happy they were there made frightening noises, scared them away. And the Buddha says, go back with this, chant this many nights, because it will indicate to the devas who have a higher consciousness, on a higher plane than we are, that you have goodwill. You know what goodwill is. So I haven't had a conversation with the deva yet. They may chuck me out the monastery. But to be able to have that intent, and the Buddha say this will probably work, and it did. That's why the Metta Sutta became famous. And I'll just point out one thing, which has almost got a typo in it. When the phrase, even as a mother protects with her life, her child, her only child, the child is your mind. That's meant to be chitta. The mother is mano, protecting it and protecting it alone. So one of the beliefs is that you can give metta to the world. The Buddha's actually saying, if your mind is full of metta all of the time, and that's how you protected your mind, you're harmless to anybody in the world. You can only really apply metta to yourself. Anyway, I'll take more questions on that another time. So let's do it, because I don't want to go on too long. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties, and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm, and wise and skillful, not proud and demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove. Wishing in gladness and in safety, may all beings be happy, whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none. The great or the mighty, medium, short or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be happy. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another, even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child. So with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, free from hatred and ill will, whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness. One should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding. By not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. So thank you, everybody. I wish you a safe and peaceful festive season. Push the monks hard to teach you well, and may you have joy and peace on the path and get to Nibbana one day.